The planet Virelia had always been a place of war. Its red skies and jagged mountains had witnessed countless battles between humans and the alien race known as the Zarkari. Captain Elias, a human soldier, had spent months in this harsh world, navigating dangerous terrain and facing enemies who saw him as nothing more than a target. Despite the constant danger, Elias had learned to survive, relying on his quick thinking and courage. One morning, after a long night of rain that had turned the rocky ground into slippery mud, Elias was sent on a reconnaissance mission behind enemy lines. His objective was simple: gather information about the Zarkari fortresses and report back. Simple, yes, but in a war zone, simple tasks often became deadly. Elias moved quietly through the ruins of a shattered village. Smoke rose from burned homes and the air smelled of ash and scorched metal. His eyes, sharp and alert, scanned every corner. It was here, in the middle of destruction, that he first heard the faint sound, a soft, frightened cry. He froze. The sound came again. This time it was clearer, a small voice calling for help. Elias followed it carefully, avoiding broken beams and jagged rocks. He moved closer to what appeared to be a collapsed building. Inside, he saw a small figure trapped, under debris. It was a child. The girl's skin shimmered in shades Elias had never seen, pale silver with streaks of violet. Her eyes were wide with fear, and her small hands pushed desperately against the rubble. She was injured but alive. Elias knew he had no choice. The mission didn't matter anymore. Human or alien, no child deserved to die like this. He dropped his pack and began removing the heavy debris. It was slow work and every second was dangerous. One wrong move and the rubble could shift, crushing the girl. "Hold still," Elias whispered, sweat running down his face. "I've got you." The child trembled but stayed quiet, sensing the human's sincerity. After what felt like hours but was only minutes, Elias managed to free her. She collapsed into his arms, weak but breathing. "Are you hurt?" Elias asked gently. The girl shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. She didn't speak in a language he understood, but her eyes told him enough. She was terrified, alone, and she needed protection. Elias checked his surroundings. He knew Zarkari patrols were likely nearby. Every second he lingered was a risk, not just to himself, but now to the child. He made a decision that surprised even him. He would take her back to human lines no matter the danger. Carrying the child, he moved cautiously through the ruins. The ground was unstable, and the air was thick with the smoke of fire and the stench of battle. He kept low, avoiding open spaces and listening carefully for footsteps. Twice he had to hide in the shadows as Zarkari scouts passed by, their alien forms tall and menacing. The girl, sensing his calm and steady presence, began to relax. Her tiny hands clung to his arm, and though she didn't speak, Elias felt a strange connection forming. She was someone he could not leave behind, someone he must protect. After hours of careful movement, Elias reached a hidden canyon where he could rest briefly. He set the girl down gently and examined her injuries. She had a cut on her arm and several bruises, but nothing that seemed life-threatening. He tore a strip of cloth from his uniform to bandage her arm. "Better?" he asked, smiling gently. The girl nodded, her violet eyes studying him with curiosity. She did not fully understand who he was, but she sensed he was different from the others. He was not like the humans who had fought and killed her people. He was someone who cared. Elias checked his equipment. They had a long journey ahead, and he knew Zarkari forces would be looking for him. He gave the girl a small water bottle and helped her drink. Even in the middle of war, simple acts of care mattered. Night fell, and the canyon became a shadowed maze of rocks and cliffs. Elias made a small shelter using his emergency tarp, creating a safe space for the girl to rest. He kept watch, his eyes scanning the darkness, every sound making his muscles tense. Yet despite the danger, he felt a strange sense of calm. For the first time in months, he wasn't just fighting for survival. He was protecting someone. Hours later, as the girl Slept, Elias reflected on what he had done. Saving her was reckless, yes. If the Zarkari discovered him, they could kill him for interference, but could he have left her behind? Never. Humans had a code, a sense of morality that even in the worst circumstances could guide their actions. Protecting the innocent was part of that code. At dawn, he prepared to move again. He knew the terrain ahead would be difficult, and the child was too small to walk long distances. He fashioned a sling from his jacket, carrying her securely against his chest. Every step was careful, measured as he led them through narrow paths and steep cliffs. By midday, they reached a small river. Elias paused to let the girl drink and wash her face. Her eyes sparkled briefly as she splashed the cool water, and he smiled. Moments like these reminded him why he kept fighting, why humans never gave up, even in the face of impossible odds. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoed through the canyon, a Zarkari patrol. Elias froze, listening. The patrol was close, moving carefully through the rocks. He held his breath, clutching the child tightly. They passed without noticing, and Elias allowed himself a sigh of relief. But he knew this was only the beginning. The Zarkari would soon realize their princess, or at least the queen's daughter, was missing. The consequences could be severe. As he pressed on, he noticed something strange. The girl's violet eyes seemed to glimmer in the sunlight. She reached out and touched his arm gently, as if thanking him in the only way she could. Elias nodded, understanding without words. Hours later, they reached a hidden valley where Elias had a small human outpost nearby. It was abandoned, but it offered safety. He set the girl down gently and looked at her. "You're safe here, for now," he said softly. She didn't speak, but her small nod and the way she rested against him showed her trust. Elias realized that in saving her, he had crossed lines he could never undo. The human soldiers back at base would be shocked. Humans did not usually rescue enemies. They fought, they defended, they survived. But Elias had chosen compassion over strategy. As night fell again, Elias kept watch. The stars above Viralia seemed brighter than ever, and he felt a strange sense of hope. Saving one life could not end the war, but it could change something, even if only a little. And perhaps, just perhaps, it could change him. Unknown to Elias, far across the planet, a great palace towered over a glowing city. Inside, Queen Serafina, mother of the girl he had saved, had been informed of her daughter's disappearance. Fury and curiosity mixed in her heart. Who was this human brave, or foolish, enough to enter her world and touch her child? Elias could not know that this simple act of saving a life would soon bring him face to face with one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. A queen who demanded obedience, loyalty, and respect. And yet, he had done what no one else dared. He had chosen humanity over fear. The night was quiet, but the storm of what was to come was already brewing. Elias, holding the girl close, felt the weight of what he had done, and deep inside, he knew that nothing in his life would ever be the same again. The morning sun painted the skies of Viralia in shades of orange and gold, but the air was still heavy with tension. Captain Elias had stayed vigilant through the night, ensuring the alien child, Lyra, remained safe. He had found a small, hidden, human outpost where they could rest briefly, but he knew this peace was temporary. Far across the planet, in a towering palace that glimmered like a crystal under the sun, Queen Serafina had received the news. Her daughter, the young Lyra, had been rescued by a human, an enemy. Fury burned in her chest, but there was also an unfamiliar spark of curiosity. Who was this human that dared to interfere with her world? And why had he not killed her child, as the laws of war would have demanded? Queen Serafina's chambers were vast, filled with glowing panels and walls etched with the history of her people. Her advisors, sleek and tall with skin that shimmered in silvery blue, spoke quietly among themselves. "Mother," one began, "this human's actions are reckless. He has trespassed into the palace's domain, and yet he is alive. Shall we strike?" Serafina's eyes, bright and sharp as diamonds, fixed on the advisors. "No," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "I want to see him myself. Bring him to me." I will decide his fate. Within hours, a message was delivered to Elias through a human translator drone he had borrowed from the outpost. The drone hovered in front of him, projecting a holographic message in multiple languages. Captain Elias, you are summoned by Queen Seraphina of the Zarkari. Your presence is requested immediately. Comply or face consequences. Elias frowned. He had anticipated this, but the speed of the summons surprised him. He glanced down at Lyra, who was awake now and looking curiously at the drone. Her small fingers brushed against his hand. It's all right, Lyra, he whispered. I'll handle this. Stay close to me, okay? Lyra nodded, trusting him completely. Elias had a plan. Obey the summons, but stay alert. A meeting with a queen of another species was never without risk. He secured his weapon, adjusted his armor, and began the careful journey toward the alien palace. The path was treacherous. The palace sat atop a high plateau, surrounded by sheer cliffs and glowing energy barriers that kept intruders away. Elias led Lyra through secret valleys and hidden caves, avoiding the main patrol routes. Every step was cautious, but his determination never wavered. He had saved a life, and now he would face the consequences, whatever they might be. By mid-afternoon, they reached the base of the palace. The architecture was unlike anything Elias had ever seen. Towers twisted into the sky like crystal spires, and the walls shimmered as if alive. Guarding the gates were Zarkari soldiers, taller than humans and heavily armored, their eyes glowing faintly with intelligence and suspicion. Elias raised his hand slightly, showing he meant no harm. I come alone, with a child. I am here to meet the queen, as requested. The lead guard examined him carefully. There was something in Elias's stance, something calm and confident, that made them pause. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the gates opened. They stepped inside, and Elias was struck by the grandeur of the interior. The walls glowed softly, and floating light orbs moved through the hallways, casting shifting patterns across the floor. He was led to a central chamber, enormous and circular, with a high ceiling that seemed to touch the sky. At the center sat Queen Seraphina. She was majestic, her skin shimmering like polished silver, her eyes glowing with intelligence and authority. Around her were advisors and guards, all observing Elias silently, the queen's gaze fixed on him. You have saved my daughter, she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. You have crossed into our territory, defied our laws, and yet, you show mercy. Why? Elias stepped forward, keeping his posture respectful but firm. Because every life matters, he said. No matter the species, no matter the war. A child does not deserve to die. Not because of her parents, not because of me, not because of anyone. I acted to protect her, that is all. A murmur ran through the advisors. This human spoke differently than expected. His words were simple, but they carried a weight of truth and courage. Queen Seraphina tilted her head, studying him carefully. You are not afraid, she observed. Most humans would tremble in the presence of a queen. You risked everything to save a child who is not yours. This surprises me. Elias shrugged lightly. I do not understand fear in that way. I understand responsibility. I understand courage. I understand right and wrong. That is what guides me, not threats or titles. For a moment, the chamber was silent. The queen's advisors exchanged uneasy glances. Elias had spoken boldly, yet he had not insulted her. There was an honesty in his voice that could not be ignored. Queen Seraphina rose from her throne, towering even more as she moved closer. Your courage is rare, human, and yet your actions could have been catastrophic. You entered enemy territory and took my daughter. Do you understand the consequences you might face? Elias met her gaze steadily. Yes, and I accept them. But I would do it again if it meant saving an innocent life. I do not serve myself. I serve what is right. The queen's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with interest. She had never encountered a being like Elias. Most humans acted out of fear, ambition, or orders from others. Elias acted from choice, from principle. And that was fascinating. You have a strange sense of morality, she said. It is not like your kind usually exhibits. Most humans are unpredictable, violent, or cautious. You are different. But are you trustworthy? Elias nodded. I am. I may be human, but I do not lie about what I believe. I act with reason and care. Queen Seraphina paused, walking slowly around him, her gaze sharp as she assessed every movement. Lyra watched from behind Elias, her small hands clutching his uniform. She did not understand the words, but she understood the respect and calm Elias carried. Finally, the queen stopped in front of him. I will not harm you yet, but you will not leave this palace freely. I wish to understand you, your people, your values. If you prove worthy, perhaps we will speak of peace or at least cooperation. But if you fail, the consequences will be severe. Elias kept his composure. I will answer your questions honestly. I will show you what humans truly are. But I cannot betray my principles. I cannot abandon what I believe is right. Seraphina studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. You will stay in my chambers under guard. You will meet my advisors. You will face challenges that will test not just your strength but your mind and your spirit. If you survive and if you prove your worth, perhaps you will earn my respect. But understand this. Nothing is simple here. You are a human, and humans are unpredictable. That may be your greatest strength or your undoing. Elias bowed slightly. I understand, Queen Seraphina. I accept your terms. The queen waved a hand, and a guard approached. Bring the child to her quarters, she ordered. Lyra was led away gently, and Elias followed, his eyes never leaving the queen. He knew that his next days would be filled with tests, challenges, and decisions that could shape the future of two species. As he was escorted through the palace, Elias marveled at the beauty and complexity of the alien world. The walls seemed alive, pulsing faintly with energy. Glowing plants hung from the ceilings and streams of water floated in midair, defying gravity. This was a civilization advanced beyond human imagination, and yet, it was flawed in the same ways as any society. Pride, fear, and power played as large a role as knowledge and skill. Once inside his assigned quarters, Elias found a simple room compared to the grandeur of the palace, but it was comfortable. A small window overlooked the city, and he could see the alien people moving below, unaware of the human in their midst. He sat down and allowed himself a moment to breathe. He thought of Lyra, of the risks he had taken, and of what lay ahead. The Queen's summons was not merely a meeting, it was the beginning of a journey that would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. And yet, despite the danger, Elias felt a quiet determination. He had saved a life once, and he would continue to act with honor, courage, and humanity. That was what made him human, and perhaps that was what would make him remarkable in the eyes of Queen Seraphina. As night fell over the palace, Elias lay awake, listening to the distant hum of alien technology and the soft, steady breathing of Lyra from nearby. Tomorrow, his trials would begin. The Queen would test him, challenge him, and observe him closely. And he would face it all, not as a soldier of war, but as a human guided by principle and heart. Unknown to him, Queen Seraphina watched from her high balcony, her eyes reflecting the stars above Virelia. She had seen courage before, but never like this. This human, fragile, mortal, yet unyielding, was unlike any she had encountered. And in the days to come, he would prove that humanity was capable of greatness in ways she could scarcely imagine. The future of two worlds rested on choices yet to be made, and Captain Elias had already shown that he was willing to make the right ones. The morning light filtered into the grand chamber, casting patterns across the polished floors. Captain Elias stood quietly, observing the alien architecture around him. Each detail seemed alive. The walls shimmered with flowing energy, and strange glyphs glowed faintly as if communicating a story he could not yet read. This palace, the home of Queen Seraphina, was more than a fortress. It was a test in itself. The Queen's voice echoed through the hall. "Captain Elias," she called. "Today your trials begin. They will test your strength, your mind, and your judgment. Know this. Failure is not only personal. The eyes of your people and mine are upon you, and the life of the child you saved hangs in balance." Elias squared his shoulders. He had faced countless dangers on battlefields, yet this challenge felt different. It was not just about survival. It was about proving what humanity could offer: courage, creativity, and morality. "Lead the way," he said calmly, his voice steady, though his mind raced. A tall Zarkari guide appeared, his silvery blue skin reflecting the light. Without speaking, he gestured for Elias to follow. They moved through the palace corridors, arriving at a circular chamber. In the center was a platform, glowing softly, with 3 doors evenly spaced around it. "This," the guide explained, in broken human speech, "is your first trial. Choose a door. Each contains a challenge. Success is required to move forward. Failure, consequences follow." Elias looked at the doors carefully. There were no markings, no hints. Each could lead to strength, intelligence, or moral challenges or traps. He thought about what the Queen had said. She wanted to test his mind and spirit, not just his body. He took a deep breath. "I choose the door on the left," he said, trusting his instincts. The door slid open silently. Inside was a large room, filled with shifting platforms suspended over a deep chasm. The platforms moved slowly, some closer together, some farther apart. Across the room, on the far wall, a small glowing sphere pulsed with light. The goal. Elias understood immediately. This was a test of agility and focus. One misstep, and he could fall. But more than that, it was a test of patience and observation. He studied the platforms carefully, noting the patterns and timing of their movement. Step by step he advanced, careful but confident. He adjusted his weight, stretched when necessary, and kept his eyes on the glowing sphere. Several times a platform shifted unexpectedly, and he almost lost his balance, but his instincts guided him. Halfway through, he noticed a small alien creature trapped on one platform, struggling to reach safety. Elias hesitated. His goal was the sphere, but the creature's life was at risk. He could ignore it, as the trial only required him to reach the end. But he could not ignore it. Using a calculated leap, he reached the platform, lifted the creature, and carried it toward the next stable platform. The act slowed him down, but he did not falter. Step by step, he continued, finally reaching the glowing sphere. As his hands touched it, the room's lights shifted, signaling completion. The Zarkari guide nodded approvingly. Your choice to help the creature was noted. Many would have ignored it. Human morality is remarkable. Elias allowed himself a small sigh of relief. One trial completed, but he knew this was only the beginning. He was led to the second door. Inside, he found a room filled with puzzles projected in midair. Floating symbols rotated, changing constantly. It was a test of intelligence and problem-solving. The Queen wanted to see if he could adapt to unfamiliar logic and think creatively under pressure. Elias studied the symbols. He noticed patterns, sequences that repeated, and slowly began manipulating the floating glyphs with his hands. Hours seemed to pass as he solved each layer of the puzzle, aligning symbols, creating patterns, and observing their interactions. At one point, a puzzle seemed impossible. A series of glyphs rotated too quickly, forming patterns that defied his attempts. Frustration crept in, but Elias reminded himself, humans survive by persistence. Step back, analyze, try again. He took a deep breath, noticed a small detail, hidden rhythm in the rotations, and finally completed the puzzle. The room brightened, signaling success. The guide spoke again. You learn quickly. Adaptation and observation are valued. Elias moved to the final door. His body was tired, his mind alert, and his heart steady. The third trial awaited him. As he entered, the room shifted into a calm garden, alien plants glowing softly. In the center stood a chair, and beside it a pedestal with two objects, a small device that could grant safety and comfort to himself, and a sealed box labeled with alien markings that he could not understand. A holographic voice echoed. Your final trial is moral. One object benefits you, the other contains unknown consequences. Choose wisely. Elias looked at the objects carefully. The device promised safety, an easy path. But the box, though mysterious, felt important. He did not know its contents, yet he sensed that true courage and morality might lie in risking personal comfort for something greater. He placed his hand on the box. As he opened it, a small alien symbol hovered above a glowing sphere. A message in Zarkari script appeared. He who risks himself to protect others proves the worth of his heart. Elias smiled slightly. He understood now. The Queen was testing not just strength or intelligence, but heart. He had chosen what was right even without knowing the reward or outcome. At that moment, the garden transformed. Lyra appeared, smiling and running toward him. "You passed?" she seemed to say with her eyes, her tiny hands reaching for him. Elias lifted her up, feeling a sense of relief and pride. The Queen's voice returned, calm and clear. "You have completed the trials. You acted with intelligence, courage, and morality. You think like a human, yet you possess qualities I did not expect. You are remarkable." Elias bowed slightly. "I acted as I believe any human should. Act, protect life, act with reason, and make choices guided by what is right." Queen Seraphina studied him closely, her expression unreadable. "You have survived the first stage. Many humans would have failed, many would have acted recklessly or selfishly. You have proven that humanity has strengths beyond physical power or weapons. Your heart, your mind, your courage, these are your weapons, and they are formidable." Elias looked around. He had faced challenges unlike any battlefield he had ever known. Each trial had pushed him to think beyond survival, to act with morality and intelligence. He had proven not just to the Queen but to himself that humans could rise to challenges with ingenuity and honor. Lyra clung to him as the guide led them back to the central chamber. "She trusts you," Elias said softly, glancing at the child. "And that trust is a responsibility." The Queen observed from her throne. "Your success has earned you a measure of respect, human. But know this, the trials will grow more difficult. The decisions you make next may affect not only yourself but the future of your people and mine. You are learning that war is not only fought with weapons, but with choices, courage, and understanding." Elias nodded. He understood. These trials were not punishment, they were lessons. The Queen sought to know humans, to test their limits and values, and Elias, by acting with honor and heart, had shown what humans were truly capable of. As night fell over the palace, Elias reflected on the day's events. He had faced physical danger, complex challenges, and moral dilemmas, and he had emerged stronger, wiser, and more certain of his principles. He had saved a child, helped a creature, solved impossible puzzles, and acted with courage in the face of uncertainty, and yet he knew this was only the beginning. Queen Seraphina's trials had revealed the power and potential of humans, but they had also revealed that trust, respect, and understanding had to be earned continually. Tomorrow would bring new tests, and Elias would face them as he always did, with reason, courage, and a steadfast heart. Lyra rested in his arms, and Elias looked out over the palace grounds. The city below was alive with lights and motion, AI, world so different from his own, yet filled with life, complexity, and wonder. Humans and aliens were separated by culture, language, and history, yet he had discovered a bridge, a path that courage, morality, and compassion could create. As he drifted into a brief sleep, he felt a quiet determination. He would continue to face the Queen's challenges not as a mere soldier, but as a representative of what humans could offer: bravery, intelligence, and, most importantly, a heart guided by principles. Unknown to Elias, Queen Serafina watched from her balcony, her gaze fixed on him even in the dim starlight. She had seen courage and morality in a being so young and fragile, yet so strong. Humans, she realized, were unpredictable, but in that unpredictability lay potential. Potential that could change the course of conflict, the future of her people, and perhaps even the fate of her daughter. The trials of respect had begun and Elias had passed, but the path ahead would be more challenging, demanding and revealing. The Queen's eyes, full of calculation and curiosity, promised tests that would push him to limits he could not yet imagine. And through it all, he would stand, human and proud, proving the strength of his kind in ways that weapons alone could never achieve. The morning sky over Veralia was calm, but the calm was deceptive. Far beyond the palace walls, a rival Zarkari faction had launched an unexpected attack on a nearby city. Explosions shook the ground, and the faint hum of energy weapons filled the air. Queen Serafina's advisors were in a panic, their voices rising in alarm. Elias, now more familiar with the palace and its people, stood beside the queen. He had been observing their defenses and learning alien tactics, but nothing could fully prepare him for the chaos outside. Lyra clung to his arm, frightened by the distant sounds of battle. "Captain Elias," the queen said, her voice calm but urgent, "we cannot repel this attack alone. You must lead a human contingent to assist us. Your skills, your knowledge, and your courage are needed." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. Humans were known for their adaptability and creativity in combat, and he knew that his role could make the difference between victory and disaster. Within minutes, he was briefed on the situation. A rival Zarkari fleet had surrounded the city, and civilian casualties were rising. The queen had ordered her elite warriors to defend key positions, but their numbers were insufficient. Elias quickly devised a plan to coordinate human soldiers and alien forces. He emphasized communication, observation, and quick adaptation, skills humans had mastered in countless wars. As he moved to the front lines, he noticed the fear and uncertainty in both human and alien soldiers. Many had never fought together, and distrust lingered. Elias knew that morale was as important as strategy. "Listen," he told the assembled soldiers, "we may come from different worlds, speak different languages, and fight with different weapons, but today we share a purpose. Protect the innocent, protect each other. If we work together, we can win." The soldiers, inspired by his confidence and clarity, nodded. Humans and Zarkari warriors fell into formation under his guidance. Elias led the first wave, using tactics that combined human ingenuity with alien technology. His small team navigated dangerous terrain, finding weak points in the enemy's lines and exploiting them efficiently. The battle was intense. Explosions rocked the ground, and laser fire illuminated the red sky. Elias moved with precision and courage, directing his forces, rescuing civilians trapped in collapsed buildings and coordinating attacks against the enemy. At one point, a group of alien soldiers was trapped under debris. Without hesitation, Elias and a human squad lifted heavy rubble, saving them in the midst of fire. The queen observed from the palace balcony, her eyes widening. She had trained. Warriors commanded fleets and faced enemies before, but Elias's actions revealed a type of bravery she had never seen, one that combined quick thinking, empathy, and unwavering moral courage. Hours into the battle, Elias identified the enemy's leader, a cunning Zarkari general. Using a combination of strategy, feints, and human creativity, he orchestrated a plan to outmaneuver the general. The humans and Zarkari forces worked seamlessly, their combined strengths overwhelming the enemy. By evening, the city was secure. Civilians cheered, soldiers exhaled in relief, and the remnants of the rival forces retreated. Elias, exhausted but satisfied, surveyed the battlefield. Lives had been saved, and a fragile alliance had been formed between humans and Zarkari warriors. "Queen," Serafina approached him, her expression unreadable but her eyes reflecting respect. "Captain Elias," she said, "you have done more than I imagined possible. Not only have you saved my city and my people, but you have shown that humans are capable of understanding, cooperation, and honor. You have earned my respect." Elias bowed slightly. "I acted as any human should. Protect life. Make choices guided by what is right. That is all." The Queen studied him for a moment longer. "You are indeed remarkable. You have shown me that the future may hold hope, if humans and Zarkari can work together. But this is only the beginning. We must continue to learn from each other if our peoples are to survive." Lyra ran to Elias, wrapping her small arms around him. "You saved everyone," she said, her voice full of wonder. Elias smiled, lifting her gently. "We saved everyone. Together. Humans and Zarkari working as one." That night, as Elias rested in the palace, he reflected on the day. He had faced dangers that tested both his mind and heart. He had led soldiers of two worlds, rescued civilians, and confronted the chaos of war with courage and wisdom. It was a victory, not just of force, but of understanding, cooperation, and human ingenuity. Queen Serafina watched him quietly from her balcony. For the first time, she considered a future where humans and Zarkari could coexist, not as enemies, but as allies. And she knew that Elias, with his courage, morality, and ingenuity, would be the bridge that made it possible. The battle had ended, but the story of trust, understanding, and hope had only just begun. The palace was quiet the next morning. The sounds of battle had faded, leaving only the hum of alien technology and the distant chatter of civilians. Captain Elias sat in the courtyard with Lyra, watching her play among glowing plants. Her laughter was bright and pure, a reminder of why he had risked everything to save her. Queen Serafina approached, her presence commanding yet composed. Elias stood respectfully. "You have proven yourself beyond expectation," she said. "Not only in trials and battle, but in your heart. You have shown courage, intelligence, and morality. You are human, and yet you have qualities that surpass many leaders of my people." Elias bowed slightly. "I did what any human would do. Protect life, act with reason, and choose what is right. That is all." The Queen smiled faintly. "It is rare to see such conviction. Humans are unpredictable. Yet in that unpredictability lies potential. Potential that could shape the future of both our worlds." She motioned for him to follow. Together, they entered the council chamber where alien and human representatives had gathered. The Queen spoke to the assembly. "Today, a human has proven that our peoples are not destined to be enemies. Captain Elias has shown that courage, morality, and understanding can bridge worlds. I propose a new alliance, one that honors life, cooperation, and mutual respect." The council members exchanged cautious glances. Many were skeptical, but the evidence of Elias's actions, his leadership, bravery, and moral strength, spoke louder than words. Slowly, they began to nod in agreement. Elias listened quietly, understanding the magnitude of this moment. A war that had lasted generations could now be tempered by trust, empathy, and collaboration. The actions of one human, guided by principles and courage, had created the possibility of peace. Lyra ran to Elias, tugging at his arm. "You saved everyone," she said. Her eyes sparkled with admiration. Elias lifted her gently. "No, Lyra, we saved everyone, together." The Queen studied them both. "This child saved by your hand has become a symbol, a reminder that life is worth protecting, that courage and morality are not limited to one species. Humans and Zarkari can learn from each other. We can grow stronger together." Over the next days, Elias worked closely with the Queen and her advisors to establish new protocols for cooperation. Human and Zarkari soldiers trained together, sharing tactics, knowledge, and strategies. Trade routes were reopened, communication improved, and a fragile yet growing trust developed between the two species. Elias became a symbol of human potential, an example that courage, morality, and intelligence could shape not only battles, but the future itself. He had risked his life for a child, faced trials that tested his mind and heart, and led forces in battle, all while staying true to his principles. Queen Seraphina watched him, her respect growing daily. She had expected a human to be strong, cunning or fierce, but Elias was all of those and more. His strength came not from weapons or force alone, but from a moral compass, intelligence, and unyielding courage. Finally, the queen called him to her chambers. "Captain Elias," she said, her tone softer than ever before, "you have earned more than my respect. You have earned my trust. Your actions have changed the course of our history, and for that, I offer you a place as an ambassador, a bridge between humans and Zarkari." Elias considered the offer. He had never sought glory or power, but he understood the importance of the role. By accepting, he could continue to protect life, promote understanding, and ensure that the sacrifices made were not in vain. "I accept," he said firmly. "Not for myself, but for the future of both our peoples." The queen nodded, and for the first time a genuine smile crossed her face. "Then let our worlds begin anew. Let humanity and Zarkari grow together, united by courage, morality, and hope." As Elias left the chamber, he saw Lyra waiting for him. He knelt and embraced her. "This is just the beginning, Lyra. A new future awaits us all." The child smiled, brightly, her trust and admiration clear. Elias knew that the bond between them, born of courage, compassion, and protection, would remain strong, a symbol of what humanity could achieve. Outside, the sun rose over Virelia, casting golden light. Across the city, the war-torn planet had witnessed destruction, fear, and uncertainty, but it had also witnessed courage, morality, and the power of a single human heart. Captain Elias had saved a child, led armies, faced trials, and built trust across worlds. He had proven that humans were capable of greatness not just in war but in understanding, empathy, and hope. And so, the story of the human who dared to act with honor began a new chapter, one of alliance, respect, and the promise that humanity could change the fate of two civilizations forever.